2.
What's up, y'all? We back.
What up?
What's up?
What up?
Last day of May. Who knows what June will bring for 2020? Apparently, rats in the city are more aggressive because the food sources are down. So that's what we got to deal with next month. Race riots, killer virus pandemic is
Locusts.
Murder hornets. Man, what a
people getting murdered still.
Yeah. So I mean, you might get messed up from any one of various directions, but we're gonna keep doing it for y'all because we love doing this for y'all. We love the input and feedback. So thank you for those who are still rocking with us. So we got Jamal, the Angry Black Fan, Rodney Pops. Let's get into it. So the NFL,
man.
Let's go.
The NFL,
Oh Lord.
Yeah,
I can't even. You can't even get it out yet. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So the NFL continues to try and improve their image by issuing a statement, which we'll talk about later. But they made a change to the Rooney Rule, stating that 2 interviews must be done with minority candidates in coaching or GM position, as opposed to the one previously. You know, we talked previously on another show about how the rule change proposals to minority hiring were kind of ridiculous what they were proposing. This one seems less ridiculous. What do you guys think?
It's such a two-way street with anything progressive the NFL attempts to do, man. Because look at it. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm sorry, man. But this is just where I'm at with Roger Goodell in the NFL. I'm going to try my best to stick to the topic at hand. I'm going to try. I don't know how much I'm going to succeed. But in terms of the Rooney Rule itself, it is a step in the right direction. If I'm being objective, and we've talked about in previous shows how the NFL desperately needs to change the culture of the NFL from top to bottom. This is a very small step, but albeit a step in the right direction. Now, it's funny, man, because, I can kind of link this to what's going on now. And I kind of compare it to like our legislators writing legislation. But if you don't enforce laws, then why does it really matter? Am I making sense when I say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're making sense.
And I don't want this to be a thing with the NFL. I don't want the NFL to say, hey, man, we tried this thing. It just didn't work. Sorry. You know what I mean? So, I guess for now, I'll give them credit for the attempt. Let's see how this actually gets executed going forward.
Okay, so this is funny because in school I'm doing something regarding the Rooney Rule. To me, if you don't address the issue of pipeline, then it really doesn't matter. Honestly, people are more likely to hire who they know and who they're comfortable around, who looks like them. Coaches, they need to bear some of the responsibility as well. Who are your who's in the pipeline to come up for your assistant coach's jobs? Who are you letting in the quarterback room? We need to be exposed to these type things to have the opportunity to become head coaches. It's way deeper than people imagine. We in the NFL, we only have one black GM right now. A few years ago, we had 7. We got 1 now. Who's in the pipeline to potentially replace the Ozzie Newsomes who retires and things of that nature?
Right.
And so it's just a complicated issue, and until there's real punishment or sanctions or anything like that, and you can't necessarily prove their bias. You have to confront it head on, and I mean this is a step in the right direction, but we're just going to continue to have this problem.
I like what you said about how are we going to replace, when we do have black GMs and people of color in positions of power or coaches. What is being done, to spread the pipeline, so to speak? Again, comparing it to situations we have going on now, I think we got to look out for us, man. We got to start grooming the GMs and the coaches, and not to say that that hasn't been done. You know what I mean? Because they're still the Eric B. enemies of the world who still don't have an NFL job. You know what I mean? So I just think that as far as we go, man, we have to continue to groom our own, so to speak, man. And that's going to be the beginning changes of what needs to change with the NFL culture.
And then look, I'm gonna say something. So once they're hired, we need to talk about the retention rates. There's no reason why Steve Wilkes should have been given 1 year and then fired.
Right.
There's no reason why Jim Caldwell is probably I looked this up recently, the first and second winningest coach in Lions history, and he should get fired after a winning season. And your GM or team president, whatever he is, he says, we strive for excellence in Detroit. Your franchise has been trash. Like, we need to hold these people accountable and call them out in these instances.
Yeah.
I think that one of the biggest issues is the NFL needs to change its ownership structure to be more like the NBA. A lot of people do not realize, and this is one of the points I tried to bring up when all the talk of Jay-Z gonna own an NFL team. No, it doesn't work like that in the NFL. The NFL does not allow ownership groups. There's only one owner. There are people that are allowed to purchase shares in a team depending on who, and it's different. I know Green Bay is the city technically owns the team, but for most NFL teams, one person has to be able to put up 60% of the capital for the cost of that team, and that is the owner. The NFL or the NBA is a little different. You take something like the Charlotte Hornets. Michael Jordan just sold most of his shares, but retained enough to be the majority owner. Mm-hmm. Then anyone can go and buy shares in the Hornets, and thus they are owners. Like Nelly is one of the owners of the Charlotte Hornets, and Jay-Z was one of the owners for the New Jersey Nets before they became the Brooklyn Nets. I think when you have something like that or ownership groups, then you can bring more diversity into that ownership group, and then that permeates down into the hiring practices. I don't think it's just coincidence that the Charlotte Hornets have more minority hires in positions from top to bottom than any other team in the NBA. Why? We have a minority owner. And look who he's hired to bring in. And I'm not even talking about necessarily running the team from a basketball operation standpoint. I'm talking from a business franchise point. You look at all the minorities in positions from top to bottom, and that permeates down. We have a minority coach. We've had minority coaching staff. Look at our assistant coaches, Patrick Ewing, Anthony Mason, former black players have come in, and this is who the Charlotte Hornets are. That is not a coincidence. We don't have that in the NFL. We don't have any minority owners in the NFL. So like Rodney said, you tend to hire around your natural biases, and that is the biggest problem with the NFL. As long as we're going to say, okay, you rich white guy, you are the owner of this team, nothing's ever going to change.
And then you look at the NFL as well, like you got nepotism running rampant, like Scott Turner, Noah Turner. You got people basically looking out for people who hired them and bought them on, and it's like a closed fraternity. And once you're in, you're in, but it's damn hard to get in. Like it's very like I really feel for these African American coaches because you know there's a glass ceiling for you a lot of times. Like look at Deuce Staley. He had a few interviews. He already know he's probably the token interview for a lot of places. Eric Bieniemy, 7, 8, 9, 10 interviews, still hasn't landed a job yet. I mean, it's kind of frustrating, man, at this point.
The NFL is like a very snobby and snooty fraternity that, if you're not, if you don't have someone connected to this club, so to speak, or if you haven't been in this certain circle of people, for a good amount of time, then you face all these challenges, man, and it's just such an uphill battle. And I think the thing that's most frustrating is that we watch sports because supposedly, if you perform, it shows. There's no, what I mean? It's not like music where it's like subjective. You know what I mean? If you perform, you're supposed to get more opportunity to perform better. And I feel like the NFL is the opposite of that. It's even filtered down to the waning quality of play on the field. I feel like it's even affected the quality of play, man, because they're not allowing any new ideas, any new faces. Yeah. It's just the same old hat, man, and the culture just needs to change altogether.
Oh, and for the people that say, hey, but the NFL is 70% black players, these black players is 70% black because it's based on their merit. I mean, not their merit, but their ability.
Right.
You can objectively see their ability on the field and off the field and via the tape. With the coaching hires, it's more subjective. It's more who you feel comfortable with, who you want to give a chance to, who they know. Like that's totally different. And that's a false equivalency. Let's end that and dead that right now.
And we, if you really want to get down to it, yeah, it's 70% black, and they also have the worst CBA out of all sports. But don't get me started on that. So there's that.
Hey, the players signed it though.
They signed it.
They
signed it, man. Like I can't really be mad.
That's also true.
They signed it.
Yeah, I would have been down for a strike or a lockout or a holdout, but it's all about money.
You tell us, no doubt. This is what you do. You choke the bottom half, they'll cave.
Yeah,
It's always like that.
Those guys who aren't making $10 million a year, they got bills to pay. They
right.
Sign, so
there's some practice squad guys who live check to check like everyday people, man. You know what I mean? Yep. So yeah.
Yeah, NFL needs some boy, do they need some work, man. In local NFL news, Carolina Panthers actually made a bit of a move in free agency. They picked up cornerback Eli Apple, who was a top 10 pick in 2016 with the New York Giants. He was considered a bit of a locker room cancer. Got traded to the Saints last season. Played pretty okay. Free agent. And now the Panthers pick him up, presumably to start alongside Dante Jackson. So with Bradbury gone, does this fix our issues in the secondary? I mean, I know the answer to that. I already know what y'all going to say, so just take it away.
Rodney, go first, man.
Toast. Burnt toast. I mean, he's a stopgap player, man. He's a guy that you take a chance on. He's still 24 years old, surprisingly. But it's also troubling that he's on his third team at 24. And so, I mean, we don't project to be that good on defense. If he works out, good. If he does it, it's for 1 year. Low risk, high reward, I guess. I mean, if he the locker room cancer, you can cut him. You're not really losing anything. So it's essentially, to me, a tryout for him this year to see if he's a long-term piece with us or anywhere else in the NFL.
I'll say this, man. It just adds to my confusion about what the hell this team is doing, man. I will say this about the young man. Talented guy who just hasn't found a way to put it together. Very troubling that it is his third team at 24 years old. It's us just taking a flyer, and it is a very low risk. Nobody's expecting much this season. Nobody with any sense can expect the Panthers defense to stop anybody this season. I think we're going to be an arena league team. We're going to score a bunch of points, but we're going to give up a bunch of points as well because Eli Apple and Dante Jackson, I'm sorry, man. I would not prefer those two being my 1 and 2 guys as far as being starting corners, man. And then on top of that, you got 7 rookies, so you're going to heavily depend on defense as well. To me, man, it's just I'm not going to say a sign of desperation, only because again we kind of know what to expect coming up this season. So I won't say a sign of desperation. I will say it's as far as the signing, man, it's just to fill a gap. it's just to fill a roster spot, man. Like Rodney said, if he performs well, so be it. We can all be happy about it. If he doesn't, again, man, low risk, man. But nothing for me to get excited about, honestly.
Now, to be fair, he did start for the Saints almost the entire season before he was injured. The Saints were a good team. The Saints haven't been bad on defense for years. They weren't a really bad defensive team last year when he played. So he did a serviceable job. But from what I read, he had a really good rapport in the locker room with New Orleans, unlike when he was in
New York.
Which New York is a difficult place to play. I don't care who you are. That's going to be tough. But I guess he has.
It's hard playing for Dave Gettleman.
Yeah.
Good point.
Had some college teammates, some Ohio State guys in the locker room in New Orleans, and I guess that helped. So I think as far as the Panthers have never, ever really had a history of being a bad locker room to play in, particularly during the last decade, during the Ron Rivera, Cam Newton era. No one has ever come out and been like, the locker room, even malcontents that left the team, everyone was like, man, the locker room is
solid.
Great. The guys are great. Everything is great. But that remains to be seen if that's going to be the case with this new regime. We've got different leaders. All the old guards gone. Locker room leaders like Luke, Greg, TD, Cam, they're all gone. So I think if the locker room is sound, Eli Apple will probably end up being a pretty good pickup. If the locker room is shaky with a new coaching staff and new coordinators and new leadership, I think we could be looking at another situation like in New York.
So, with that being said, Kaiser, because you kind of stole my thunder with everybody being gone, who the hell is the leader of this defense now? Who's that guy?
KK.
Short.
KK.
Who is it?
It's just
it's
KK.
Gotta be Shaq. I'm hoping that some of that Luke and TD rubbed off on Shaq.
Right.
Because if you look at Luke did not come into the Panthers as a leader.
No, he didn't.
Remember, he played outside linebacker. He took his cues from John Beeson and Thomas Davis, and they taught him how to be a leader.
Taught him how to be right.
And so I'm hoping, Shaq Thompson played with 3 years with Luke and TD, or 4. 2 with TD, 3 with Luke, 4.
Yeah.
So I feel like if you're not a leader at this point,
you're never going to be right.
Two of the greatest leaders the Panthers have ever had, then it's just not you, bro. We'll see. It's also going to depend on what the new defensive coordinator is. The locker room is a big question mark for the Panthers, and to bring in someone like Eli Apple, who has a history of being a locker room malcontent, that's a pretty interesting move for Matt Rule and his team. And that's going to
be. And the thing is, man, I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on Matt Rule, man, and we're going to see how he's going to respond to this. You know what I mean? Because Matt Rule is somebody who's known to be a master motivator. He's changed all these programs around, but now he's coming into the situation, man, where he has to, quote unquote, be the leader of these grown men now who lack leadership from the outside looking in. We don't really know yet. Let me say it like that. But we all know when we've seen athletes talk, man, the coach is obviously the leader. However, in any professional sport, man, there has to be 1 or 2 guys that are on the front line, so to speak, who also have to be the coaches on the field, on the court, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? And the scary part for the Panthers is we don't know who these guys are.
But you can look at it like it's probably the reason why they brought in Robbie Anderson and Whithead from the Raiders, because they've been under his program before. And even if you look at the 5th round pick, the big guy, the defensive tackle, he's been under his program before. And so they can be kind of leaders by proxy as well. And so
someone's going to have to take the reins.
Yeah.
Remember when Cam Newton came in the league and he essentially made that comment about being a lion, and he kind of was like, the Panthers are a bunch of losers and everyone should him for that. But he was right. He was absolutely correct. And he became the leader. He was like, look, This is my team. I'm the leader. Luke came in, did the same. Those guys. So someone's got to come in, whether that's a veteran from another team, which I don't see that being the case, or really I think it's got to be someone that carried over from the old regime. It's got to be a guy like Shaq or KK who knows what it's like to be a Carolina Panther, whatever that means nowadays.
Right.
They've got to come in and be like, look, this is how we're going to run the team, or else it's going to be everything's going to be a disarray. So
and the risk you take with that is sometimes leaders are not the most well liked, and sometimes it even costs them their job. But we won't get on that today.
Sometimes leaders take your lunch.
People gave Cam so much crap for those comments back then, and he ended up being. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do as a leader.
No doubt.
Okay, enough about the no fun league. We're gonna go to the NBA. Who they're scrambling to. Let me. I'm gonna say something real quick about the NBA because I'm gonna let y'all talk. The NBA, as far as being progressive in the way that it's run, has the perception, the appearance that they are kind of the leaders in this as far as North American professional sports. But don't get it twisted. The NBA is about money. They're about nothing else.
Right.
I don't care what they say, what statements they make. They are about money. So that is why they are scrambling to find some way to make revenue with the shortened season before going directly into a playoffs, even though we know that that's probably the best. That's what they should do. They should just cut the season short,
rolling to the playoffs.
But they're trying to find a way to increase revenue. So one of the things that was projected was to do some kind of play-in system before going to the playoffs. And but essentially teams that did not have a chance to make the playoffs before would not be able to make the playoffs at all under this system. So Charlotte Hornets owner Michael Jordan came out during a call with the league's board of governors. Now, there's no exact quote because this was like a secret boardroom thing, but apparently he advocated for player safety and said, hey, I don't want my guys playing meaningless games.
Right.
And essentially said the Charlotte Hornets would not participate in such a play-in system if the NBA reinstated games under that system. That kind of flies in the face of this narrative that Michael Jordan is all about money? And revenue, which, I mean, we all know the truth, but with everything that's been said about Michael Jordan in the past few weeks, this just kind of flies in the face of that. What are your guys' thoughts on any potential play-in systems the NBA is moving forward with and Michael Jordan's stance on it?
If I'm the NBA, goal number one is to make sure that Zion is a part of this playoff system.
Good point.
I mean, he's the draw. Outside of LeBron, Curry's not going to be in it. Outside of LeBron, he's that dude as far as draw. Like, people are infatuated with him, and you have to get him there. With Mike, man, this is funny to me, man. Like, if I'm Mike, I don't want the Hornets in this either. Like, protect that lottery position at all costs. We don't need the 12th pick again. I'm sorry. Like, look.
Hey, look, man. We were getting hot towards the last part of the season, man. So, hey, let's cut all this winning out now. So,
cut it out.
The Hornets love though, because apparently under this play-in system, the Hornets would have no chance of making the playoff. The Hornets could win every game and then still be out of the playoffs. And wouldn't that be just our luck that we do that we win all of these meaningless games and
pick number 12 again?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Number 12. Right now, the Hornets currently would pick number, or rather, we wouldn't pick 7th. Our lottery position would be 7th.
Right.
So we would still have a chance at the number 1 pick as it currently stands. So.
And Rodney, I didn't mean to cut you off, man. What were you saying, brother?
No, you're good. You're good. I forgot anyways.
But Zion needs to be whatever the NBA.
Yeah, he needs to be in
there. And I know it's killing the NBA that if Zion Williamson was the next LeBron. He was going to be the next generational talent. What happens? He gets injured, and then when he comes back, global pandemic happens, and it's got to be killing the NBA from a pure revenue standpoint. They're like, look at all the money that we are missing out on. And Michael Jordan's like, I don't care about
right
your money. I care about my asset.
So about that. Here's the thing, man. We're in no position to tell the NBA to take an L, but if I'm the NBA, man, I seriously think about just taking an L. Not only because you're scrambling to try to come up with a system that's convenient for everyone and trying to scramble to make up this lost revenue, but with everything that's going on, I think it's a legitimate question. Do people even really feel like watching sports right now? And that could be a yes or a no. However, I say this, man, just with everything going on right now, to try to squeeze in something that's kind of unimportant right now, it just, and this is coming, y'all, I don't have to explain how much we're all diehard basketball fans. You know what I mean? It's just, the NBA is just on the back burner right now for me. And I thought, and coming from me, I thought I would never say anything like that, as much as I miss sports. But at the same time, if you're scrambling and if the system is not right and you just skip right to the playoffs, man, talking about meaningless games, how much does it really mean at that point? You get what I'm saying? So if the NBA decides to just say, you know what, we're also going to take an L, I'm also fine with that as well. Take an L, start fresh next year, and do it right. Because I don't want them scrambling and it's just throwing some junk out there. So
no, we got to get LeBron his 4th championship. He has to challenge MJ's legacy.
Of course.
The Clippers was gonna sneak up and win it anyway, I think.
Look, if you're gonna do
Clippers
it, just look. Yeah, look. Here's the suggestion, NBA. Just skip to the conference finals and just whoever you thought was gonna be there, we'll just have at it, man. Because
I'm gonna throw a little curve in here. Something I heard them talking about on sports shows the past week. Let's say the Lakers win a championship, or let's say if this could apply to any team that potentially wins a championship this season, but the talk was specifically about LeBron James and the Lakers. Should there be an asterisk beside it?
Not to me, no.
Would you give as much credit to a team, particularly LeBron James led team, that won a championship this season over any other season?
Personally, I would not. But for those people who want to put an asterisk by the 99 championship by the Spurs, put one by this one too. Personally, I would not, though.
I wouldn't either. I mean, you're a champion, you're the champion, you're the best that abbreviated year. Just leave it at that. I mean,
it's not like anybody has a clear advantage. You know what I mean? So putting an asterisk by a championship is just stupid, man, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, you can only play within the rules that are provided to you. I do think there's some context and nuance when it comes to different championships, but that's not the player's fault at all. So hopefully the NBA gets their act together, and I'm willing to wait till next. They're talking about November, December, starting the NBA season back up. I want to see a healthy, developed Charlotte Hornets team at that point. I hope those guys will still get reps in somehow. I hope they still in the gym. This is the perfect time to continue to develop. I hope players haven't gotten lazy like I have. So more Charlotte sports news. The Charlotte Major League Soccer team president Tom Glick announced yesterday that the team would choose a name in June. Now, he didn't elaborate on what that name could possibly be. However, back in December, they filed trademarks on the following names: Charlotte FC. By the way, FC Football Club for those who don't know. Charlotte
Thank
FC.
you.
Yeah, Charlotte
Real
FC.
Football.
Charlotte Crown FC. Charlotte Fortune FC. Charlotte Monarchs FC. Charlotte Athletic FC. Charlotte Town FC. Carolina Gliders FC.
No.
And all Carolina FC. Now, we don't know if it's going to be one of those names or not, but I feel like if they filed or registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, they're going to pick one of those names. They wouldn't have spent the time and money to do it if they're just going to pick some other name. I think we can all agree, anything with Carolina in the name, get that out of here.
Get it out here, man. Can't do it. Nope.
No, they don't love us.
Yeah, just don't. Can Charlotte? Can we have something?
Can we have something, please? Hey man, let me make something clear to our brethren across the border here, man. We don't hate you guys, okay? We don't care if you share in our fandom of the team that is located in Charlotte. We are just a city that is desperately fighting for our own identity, man. And the team names are just a small symbol of that. So our South Carolina brethren, man, don't be mad at us, man. It's just that we just want something that the city of Charlotte can call its own. That's all, y'all. Don't be mad at us, man. With that being said, I like Charlotte FC. Just keep it simple. That's my pick.
I like Charlotte Monarchs. I like the Monarchs.
Or Charlotte Athletic FC is another one I like too.
Yeah, some of the Charlotte. I think Charlotte Crown is a good one. I like the titles that that highlight Charlotte's royal heritage.
Right.
I mean, the name of our very city comes from that. So I'm perfectly okay with those names.
I agree.
But I'm okay with Charlotte FC. A lot of that's kind of like the tradition for a lot of European football clubs. The only one that I follow, Newcastle FC. That's it. Newcastle FC. That's it. That's
right. Keep it simple.
Name, football club. That's it.
That's it.
Keep it simple. I'm all
for
it.
I got a suggestion. Charlotte economic mobility.
Tepper's not going to go for
Charlotte gentrification.
You know what? David Tepper. Tepper's not from Charlotte. Okay. So he comes into the area and he feels like, and this is a holdover from when George Shinn was pitching the Charlotte Hornets. A lot of people don't know this, but when they were pitching the Hornets to the NBA, they included all of both Carolinas and part of Virginia as the region that would support us, because Virginia didn't have any professional sports teams.
Right.
And at the time, that might have been true. That was 1986 when they gave that pitch to the NBA. That is not the case anymore. Charlotte has 2 million people in Charlotte proper. We're the 15th largest city in the United States now. So we don't, I'm not gonna say we don't need, we love support from all regions, but the idea that, man, we gotta pander to the South Carolinians, 30 miles across the border, or people in Virginia, or the people in Raleigh, we don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
We don't have to. So I think Tepper has come down and he looks and he sees, I can get this, that's why the Panthers moved their headquarters to Rock Hill. We should talk about that Avengers ass looking headquarters. By the way, who designed that?
Tony Stark.
Yeah. So, and they're the Carolina Panthers. They're not the Charlotte Panthers. Okay, I get it, but don't feel like you need to apply that logic to every professional sport.
Every professional sport, right? Thank you.
In Charlotte, this will not be a Carolina team. I hope. At least I hope.
I mean, one good thing about the Hornets not being contenders here, South Carolina doesn't want them yet. So, I mean, we don't have that problem with the Hornets.
Yeah,
Raleigh don't want them either.
When the Hornets start winning, then the bandwagon is going to jump on anyway. So
right. Well, you know how that goes. Yeah.
So okay, so let's get into it. In more somber news.
Everybody breathe.
Let's backtrack here to a mere 5 days ago. This is hard to believe. This all started 5 days ago. A man named George Floyd was killed during an arrest by Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. He had his knee on the side of his neck for almost 9 minutes. He died in police custody a little bit later after that. This, of course, sparked an outrage response by the citizens of Minneapolis, in which case the police department at first seemed as if they were not going to place any blame on the officer for what happened. However, there was a little bit of unrest. The police department, the citizens attacked it, and then it just so happened the next day they charged Officer Chavin with first-degree manslaughter. You'll hear people use the phrase third-degree murder. There's no such thing. It's first, second degree, and then manslaughter. So that, coupled with statements by the Minneapolis Police Department that they didn't believe that the actions taken by the officer contributed to the death of George Floyd, prompted more protests and outrage in Minneapolis, and that spread globally. And I mean that literally. It's protests for this injustice happening in other countries, Italy, Iran. We've seen that, and of course, it's spread throughout all the United States, and it's come to our fair city, which is, we're going to talk about the nuance behind what's happening in Charlotte. But before we get started, for those who know me well, know that I lived in Minnesota for some time, Minneapolis. I went to Park Center High School for a year. I lived in Minnesota for Minneapolis year and a half. Y'all know I rock my Twins jersey all the time. Minneapolis is like a second home to me. I have a lot of family and friends that live there. I love that city, and anyone that has ever been there knows what the racial makeup in Minneapolis is very, very unique. You could go to, the people always joke about don't go to St. Paul. That's where the black people are. The school I went to, Park Center, they called it Dark Center because it was predominantly, but it was like 96% black people. There's always been this element of racial tension in Minneapolis. Lest we forget, 2 years ago, the lady, I believe her name is Christine Diamond, was shot and killed. A white woman from Australia was shot and killed by a black police officer, and he was found guilty. He was convicted of second-degree murder. So when you have all of those factors happen, let's not forget Philando Castile was killed by Minneapolis police just a year ago. So you have all these factors come in, and then you have this happen. I'm not surprised at all. And I applaud those who have said, we've had enough. We're tired of it. We're sick of it. And now it's time for you to hear our voices. So, gentlemen, your thoughts on this whole situation?
Honestly, man, I'm just, it's just like, where do we go? Like, I'm so tired, man. I'll be 34 this year, and it's just like, it's just all my life. You just deal with it, and it's just like, it's actually inspiring to see everybody kind of rise up and protest against this everywhere. But it's just like, what's next? Like I've never seen nothing like this before, and it's just like, what's the next plan? Like what do we want? Honestly, like what do we want totally? And so it's just like, I just want our leaders, like people, our leaders in our communities, to get together and just come up with a list of things we want to accomplish as well. Watching Mr. Floyd kind of hurt my heart, man. I purposely avoided it for a couple of days. Then I finally said, I'm going to look at it. And for him to actually sit there and have somebody put their knee on his neck for 9 minutes, 9 whole minutes, and then hear that grown man cry for his mother who recently passed away, man. It's just like he wasn't even resisting. It's just like, I'm thinking, like, do I even want to bring a child into this world? Mm-hmm. Like, I fear for my younger brother, my brother-in-law. They're my brother's 24, he'll be 25 in 2 days. My brother-in-law is 22, 23. And it's just like, they're good kids, but to other people, they're threats, and it's just like where do we totally go from here? It's just, I mean, it's great to have allies, but I mean, it's we need more. I don't know. I'm just speechless.
Let me say this, man. When I woke up today and we were planning on doing the show, I said this to myself. I said, I really don't. To be totally candid, man, I was like, I don't really feel like talking about this today. And the reason why I said this is because we're in the year 2020, man, and we're still doing this. We are still doing this, and I don't know how to feel saying that because there's so many people, who have lived through this and who have lived through worse in past generations. And I don't want to feel like a softie compared to what our parents had to go through. I don't want to kind of compare this to what our grandparents had to go through. But at the same time, in our relatively short lifetimes, man, look at all the things we've seen in our age group. You get what I'm saying? There's an interesting article by theroot.com and I don't know if this is an old article or not, but it's something that I just saw this morning. And it basically, outlined, for lack of a better term, like just, events that have led to racial tensions, going all the way back to like 1877. Of course, they didn't cover it all, but, just cover some very significant events that led up into what we're seeing now. And the reason I'm bringing this up, man, is because I just feel like what we're seeing now, I just think that things are at a fever pitch. I think there are a lot of people who are just like, enough is enough. Finally, after centuries and decades of just bullshit, of us being killed, of racial inequality, everything, just everything. I think people are finally just fed up, man.
I mean, and also, man, you look at it, man, like, look, we're the main ones in essential jobs. We're in the front line on those jobs. 40 million people just lost their jobs. We're being killed. Nobody cares. They're opening back up COVID stuff. They're opening up the economy and everything like that. It's like nobody seems to care. It's like everything is just money, 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 money. That's all they care about. And it's just like, it's. I was looking at Fannie Mae Hamer, and she was just saying, like, it's just a powder keg. Like, we built this country, and the young men just want to be treated like young men. They want to be treated like a man, and
like human beings.
Like human beings. And it's just like, like even if you look at the NFL, man, it's just like you gotta laugh at it. Like when they make statements, it's just like, okay, like you're with us in solidarity and stuff like that, but Kaepernick doesn't have a job.
Yeah, hey man, Rodney, I'm glad you brought it up, man, because I think Goodell made a tweet or something and made a statement this morning. And look, and y'all know I've said this on previous shows, man. I don't want to hear from him. Like I made a statement on the past Under Construction show maybe 2 seasons ago. Everyone is full of shit until Colin Kaepernick gets a job. It's the bottom line. But that is such a microcosm for what's going on in America right now. Like, we're all tired of leaders talking. I think we all can agree on that. We are all tired of leaders telling us it's going to be better. We're working for you, blah, 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 blah. And we're just in this continuous cycle of us being on the wrong end of the stick all the damn time. And the powder keg is here for that reason. We're fed up.
And then we got incompetent leadership. Who the hell thought it was the smart statements when the looters get the looting and get the shooting? Like,
which is a borrowed quote, by the way, but that's neither here nor there.
By a Miami segregationist police chief or whatever, and it's just like, to me, it's like, you know what the hell you're doing. Like, it's fucked up that you even wrote that.
Yeah, that's a dog whistle.
Right. It's a dog whistle.
And it's not a coincidence that this is happening with this particular administration, or at least the way that it has emboldened certain people to, let's say,
Show their true colors.
yeah. For instance, the guy who shot an arrow at the protesters.
Perfect
Now,
example. Yep.
yeah. Now fortunately, he didn't hurt anyone. But
He got
why
hurt.
would he think that was okay? Obviously, he thought it was. At the protest a few years ago, remember, someone pulled out a gun and shot at someone, just randomly. These people are emboldened to do this because they think there's no ramifications. They expect the oppressed, and I understand that oppression is a subjective term, but those of us who are disenfranchised have, for the most part, throughout modern history, remained fairly docile. So I think that these people feel like, okay, we can force these people back into being docile by showing our superiority, and that's not working anymore.
And that's not working anymore. Right.
It's more of us than it is of you now. So now what are you going to do? I think that also, I want people to understand this. This is not a black versus white issue. It is a black versus racism issue.
Thank you.
It just so happens that the people that are exhibiting racism are white. Now, you can take that however you mean to take it, but that is the truth of the matter. People need to understand the distinction between those elements. For people who are saying that it is not a race issue, no, it is a race issue. Okay, it is. There's no way around. There's no way around.
Real quick, guys. The people who say that it's not a race issue, that is just denial. That is flat out denial. It's nothing else, man. But I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, bro.
No. You're absolutely right. These people are in denial. And to be fair, I think some people are confused about how to feel about this. They just are, both black people and white people. Because yes, I understand that you cannot take 10 people out of 100 and then say that entire 100 is bad. I understand the mentality. However, accountability is important, and I've long said
accountability is way important.
And I have long said that black people, one, we cannot fix racism. Two, it is not our problem to fix. It is a white person issue. White people need to be holding each other accountable. What are you doing to make sure that your friends aren't out there implementing racism? And when I say racism, I there's a sentiment, well, anybody can be racist. And yeah, I guess if you were to follow the letter of the definition of racism, that would be true. However,
but with that point being made, stop being obtuse, because people know we're not talking about that tech book. Yeah, right.
They know, but black people, there's nothing that I don't care how influential I am, there's nothing that I can do that is going to oppress a white person. It's just not going to happen. I know a lot of people might not be happy with that viewpoint, but that is the truth. Look at Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is one of the most influential black people in America, maybe the last 50, 40 years or so.
Right.
Do you think that anything that Michael Jordan does is
gonna stop racism?
Yeah. No,
right.
Not. That's what when we say racism, we're talking about the impact of it, and the impact it has been for so long. The impact of racism has been heavily weighing on the fabric of this country, and we're just tired of it. We're just tired of it. I for one. And I'll tell you this about the looting and destruction of property, despite the fact that most of that is caused by outside agitators and instigators.
Right.
We'll talk about that in a second.
And I'm going to say a lot of that is inside job, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah. Those are not people who want to peacefully protest. Those are people who come there just to start stuff. But having said that, I don't care about windows getting broken and Targets getting looted, and I don't care. I just don't care.
Hey, Kaiser, like me and you discussed yesterday, when Target, the $73 billion corporation, comes out and says, "Hey guys, we're good. Don't worry about us," then nobody should worry about Target. Like,
No,
shut the
yeah.
hell up. Nobody cares. No,
I care more about people, black people, but people also being affected by the militarization of local police brutality, systemic racism, and I care about those things.
right.
Yeah.
I don't care about someone stealing from the Michael Jordan store in Chicago got hit up.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
I'm sure he doesn't care. He'll be fine.
And let me say this. One thing is really pissing me off too. That's not the way how to protest. Look, Colin Kaepernick protested peacefully. You bitched, whined, and complained.
And essentially cost him his career.
Cost him his career. Martin Luther King, he was a peaceful protester most of the time. He caught a bullet. He caught a bullet.
He got killed. Yeah.
Bullet. Like, look, I'm basically tired of you telling. I'm tired of you telling people how to protest. You just want people to shut the hell up and not say anything.
Just 2 weeks ago, protesters went to government federal buildings with guns. Armed.
Right in front of the about haircuts.
If you show up somewhere with a gun, I can only assume you are there
to shoot.
For violent reasons. No one else in these protests that are happening across the city are showing up. None of these civilians are showing up with guns except for the instigators and the agitators. So, yeah, like you said, Rodney, why is that an acceptable form of protest? Showing up to the Capitol building with guns, but yet,
if you remember the Black Panther Party in the 60s, they showed up to Sacramento with guns, and then Ronald Reagan passed legislation about guns right after that.
Right.
I mean,
and speaking of the Black Panthers, very briefly, don't want to go on a tangent here, but they were labeled a terrorist organization for simply wanting to protect their own neighborhoods, for wanting to protect people of color in their own neighborhoods. Fred Hampton lost his life. He was murdered by the FBI and seen as a terrorist for someone who just wanted to be a leader and a revolutionary for people of color. So history repeats itself in a lot of different ways, man. I'll keep it at that.
Hey, you guys, I want you to expound on the agitators.
So there's actually a long history of agitators being placed in peaceful protests, either by the powers that be or by non-government backed organizations that would have some gain if they were able to undermine these movements. We actually saw it in the civil rights movement. There were agitators, some of them actually Black people, but who were normally paid by the FBI or possibly the CIA to come and turn these peaceful protests into essentially riots.
Right.
And that would change the narrative. See, look at these people. They don't want peace. They're destroying their own neighborhoods and whatnot. In fact, that tactic led directly to the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Of the peaceful protests that he had, the agitators were able to disrupt it so much that he actually decided to go back to stage another peaceful protest, and that allowed his would-be assassins to know where he was staying. And it ended up in his death. So what we're seeing nowadays is the same thing, except I think this time I'm not sure if it's so much government entities as it is entities that are non-government backed that want to do things like start another civil war, start race riots. I think that these infiltrators are from these outside groups, especially if you look at who's doing the destruction. Now that we live in an age where everyone can videotape anything,
right,
and you look at these people, the people who are throwing bricks, y'all know who I'm talking about. I don't have to say it, but if you look, like oh, wait, those aren't the people that I see in my community. And me and Jamal talked about this yesterday. So in Charlotte, the day before yesterday, there was a Facebook invite that went out for a protest on Beatties Ford Road. Now, the 3 people hosting the protest, I don't know who these people are. Never heard of them in my life. And
Didn't want to be seen.
Yep. I know everyone in the community that would have held a protest. And when I saw that, I thought, oh, first
That's
of all,
fishy.
yeah, y'all don't live on the Ford. I know that. So why are we going to come all the way down to Beatties Ford Road? We could go down to the police department downtown and protest. That's
Or
where
the
you
South
should be
Park.
protesting. Oh yeah, or but you said you want to come to Beatties Ford Road, and then so people go, and then our community leaders decide to go to de-escalate and lead people on the right way to protest, and it ends up turning into violence and destruction of property. It was it doesn't get any more clear to me that was a setup.
Right.
Yeah.
And for those of you who in 2000 was that 16 now that we protested the Keith Scott shooting, it's hard to believe that was 4 years ago, but I remember the protest was peaceful until
riot police came. Right.
Riot police showed up and then started shooting at us, and then it turned into this destruction of property. And I remember there were people in the crowd who were starting these little scuffles, and that was real confusing to me. That was my first time ever engaging in a protest, and I was like, why are those people over there fighting each other? We're all here for the same cause. And then someone said, nope, those are agitators. Ignore those people. And we're talking like 10,000 people all marching. It was difficult to discern those people out of the crowd. So that's a very real thing. Agitators to undermine these movements, and I think we saw that in Charlotte, and they took advantage of it. They arrested Braxton Winston, city council member, was arrested for, by his words, he was charged with failure to disperse. He was there with his child. Now he is a city leader. He was voted in that position by the whole city at large. He's a city council member. He was there in his official capacity as a city council member, and they arrested him for failure to disperse. Are you kidding me? It's just ridiculous.
I think his story is another show. Honestly, man, I hope to have him on here one day, man, because me and you, Kaz, kind of alluded to the fact that I think the powers that be in law enforcement have kind of been hunting for him the last few years, man, and they need to make a statement saying that that's not the case, because not that I would probably believe him anyway, but it just makes too much sense to me. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, y'all, we're running out of time, but the sad part about this is next week we'll probably be talking about the same thing, and that's the sad part. There'll probably be a lot more news related to this next week as we come back on the show and have to do this again. Hopefully it's not another layer added on to what we've already been dealing with. We just had a whole show where we didn't even mention the spike in corona cases and the perceived spike in corona cases after all this is done. It's so much going on in the world right now, man. It's a whirlwind right now, man. So this last hour has just been enjoyable for me, just to vent and just to get away from it all. So, yeah.
And you guys got any shout outs before we head out?
My shout outs just go to everyone who was standing in true solidarity, not there to be unproductive. I'll say that. I shout out to everybody who was standing in productive solidarity to influence change and just to stand up for Black people's rights to be human beings, man. Shout out to everybody fighting that fight.
Yeah, not everyone can be a soldier. Not everyone's going to go out on the front lines and put what we've seen to be their lives on the line. You go out there now, you rumble with the police, you could get hurt or killed. So
right.
Not everyone is made for that, and that's understandable. Do not shame those who are not cut out for that. But there are other ways that you can help fight this fight. You need to find out what those ways are. Engage with your community leaders. Hold people accountable.
Yes.
That's how it starts. You have to make people afraid to be
mess
racist,
up,
and you have to make them question their own ethics and morals. You really do. You have to make people say, "Wow, I'm on the right side of history here." That's how you can help fight the fight. So those who are fighting it, however you can, shout out to you guys. We'll win. Somehow we'll win.
Shout out to the true allies who are out there with us helping to fight, the non-agitators, and who really, truly, genuinely care. It's up to you guys to help spread this anti-racism word out and hold each other accountable. And then finally, I got a weird shout out. Shout out to NASCAR for actually having races.
Having a race, yeah.
Having races.
No doubt.
I never thought I would shout out NASCAR, but shout out to you for having races, man.
No doubt.
Yeah, the UFC had a fight last night too. No fans. This is gonna be the new norm for a while, so
yeah,
we might as well get used to it.
All right, y'all.
All right, y'all.
Till the next time. Thank y'all, listeners and watchers. Yes. Appreciate y'all.
Be safe out there. Take care of yourselves and each other. Peace, y'all.